On both the GRE and the TOEFL, you have to write 2 essays. The GRE is a graduate level exam and the TOEFL is an undergraduate level exam. So these 2 exams don't have a lot in common, except for one essay. What's called the Analyze an Issue essay on the analytical writing part of the GRE is called the independent essay on the writing part of the TOEFL. They're both argumentative essays. The other essay on the GRE is actually called the Analyze an Argument essay, but this essay is much closer to an argumentative essay. If you feel like you're not familiar with what an argumentative essay is, you probably are. It's just that you probably learned how to do it when you were about 12. So that knowledge has been suppressed into your subconscious mind to be replaced in your conscious mind by newer, more active information. You might just be a little bit rusty and need to brush up. In the past, the argumentative essay was the most common essay type on virtually any standardized exam. You were given a prompt, 1 or 2 sentences about some controversial topic, gun control, the death penalty, etc., and asked to take a position and defend it. That's an argumentative essay. Because the GRE is on a higher level, you do have freedom to be less structured and a little bit more creative. But either way, on either exam, on these essays, in order to be able to write them, you have to be familiar with the basic concepts of argumentative essay writing. The outline for this essay is the classic traditional 5-paragraph structure of introduction and conclusion with 3 body paragraphs sandwiched in between. The first thing you do on an argumentative essay is take a position. The prompt presents you with information that may not necessarily be controversial, but if you can take a position, it is a topic on which people disagree. You may notice that the prompt includes wording that uses extreme language. That's intentional. If you see extreme language, I really want you to go ahead and disagree, because part of your objective on this essay is to demonstrate that you don't think in extremes. You don't do black and white thinking. It's okay to have any opinion that you want, but you have to be able to defend that opinion, and that's where supporting points come in. Supporting points support your position by answering the question, why? Why do you think that way? If you have difficulty brainstorming supporting points, think about the consequences. What's going to happen? What happens if not? Brainstorm 2 supporting points, and that'll be your first 2 body paragraphs. In the 3rd body paragraph, you do what's called counter-argument and refutation. The counter-argument is the first supporting point for the opposing position. Imagine you are having a debate with the person who disagrees with you, the person who holds the opposing position. What is the first thing that he says to support his position? That's the counter-argument. Let's say, for example, that it's your position that people should eat organic food. The opposing position is that people should not eat organic food. People should not eat organic food is not the counter-argument. That's the opposing position. What's the first thing your opponent says to support his position? He says it's expensive. That's the counter-argument. After the counter-argument, you want to return to your position, and from your position, respond to the counter-argument. That's the refutation. Going back to our organic food example, if your opponent says it's expensive, you can say, well, you're going to pay for it in the long run. If you don't take care of your health now, you may have very expensive medical bills in the future. That's the refutation, and the refutation is the 3rd supporting point. So after you brainstorm supporting points, it's time to brainstorm specific examples. Specific examples are narratives, little stories that illustrate the point you are trying to make. Specific examples always accompany supporting points. You can't have one without the other. Again, if you have difficulty brainstorming supporting points, some people do it backwards. Brainstorm the specific example first and then derive the supporting point from there, because the supporting point is kind of like the moral to the story. Specific examples can come from your personal life, from nonfiction, or from fiction, and it's good to have a variety of all 3. If they come from your personal life, they don't necessarily have to be true. The person reading your essay does not have time or means to verify the accuracy of your stories. They just need to sound true. I often tell clients to write down the name of one man and the name of one woman, and these are your imaginary friends about whom you can invent stories. Specific examples are so important. I don't know if you know this, but on the GRE at least, one of the people who read your essay is actually not a person, it's a computer. And I think one of the things that the computer looks for is specific examples. So after you take a position and brainstorm supporting points with specific examples, you're ready to write. Because it is the most important sentence in the essay, I often tell clients to write the thesis statement first, but it's not the first sentence in the essay. The thesis statement is always the last sentence in the introduction, and it's always two things. It's always main idea plus supporting points. The main idea is your position, and the supporting points are the supporting points and refutation that you brainstormed. When you give your position, although it's okay to use first person in this essay, I recommend that you not use phrases like I think, I feel, I believe, in my opinion, or personally, because when you state an opinion as opinion, you actually weaken your argument. You leave it open and vulnerable to attack because you invite disagreement. So it's better to state your position as though it is fact. If you want to write a direct thesis statement, and I prefer that you do, you summarize in the thesis statement the supporting points that you will elaborate later in the body paragraphs. That may seem repetitive, but this is actually a way to be kind to your reader by saving him time. Let him know in advance what's coming so he can decide for himself if he wants to continue reading your essay or not. If you want to write an indirect thesis statement, you don't summarize the supporting points in the thesis statement, but you suggest that you have supporting points. So you write something like, for several reasons. In other words, a direct thesis statement looks something like position because A, B, and C. And those can be nouns, verbs, or whole clauses. So a direct thesis statement can get quite long. An indirect thesis statement looks something like position for several reasons. When you're done with the thesis statement, you can go to the beginning and write from the top down. The first sentence in the introduction and in the entire essay is the hook. A hook is something interesting and creative that does what it says it does. It hooks the reader's attention and makes him want to continue reading your essay. A hook does not take a position, and it does not repeat the prompt. A hook can take several different forms. It can be a quote or a statistic if you know any. It can be a definition of a term. It can be a hypothetical or rhetorical question. Either way, you don't expect an answer, but the best kind of hook is a narrative. To write a hook, you want to meditate on the theme of the essay. To identify the theme, ask yourself, if you were writing this essay in a class, what would the name of the class be? That's the theme. Think about the theme and write the first thing that comes to mind. Because every paragraph in an essay needs to be at least 3 sentences, after the hook, you write what's called connecting information because it connects the hook to the thesis statement. Connecting information does not take a position either, but it lets the reader know that there is some kind of debate here. Again, if you can take a position on a topic, that means it is a topic on which people disagree. So after you have hook, connecting information, and thesis statement, you're done with your introduction and you're ready to write your body paragraphs. Throughout the rest of the essay, I cannot stress enough how important it is to use transitions. For some reason, English teachers love transitions. Again, on the GRE at least, one of the people who read your essay is actually not a person, it's a computer. And I really think what the computer looks for are specific examples and transitions. You cannot use too many transitions. It's like if you're training for a marathon and you load up on carbs, when you write an argumentative essay, you want to load up on transitions. I have a chart listing transitions for writing on my website, and that information is in the description. So when you start writing the body paragraph, start using as many transitions as possible. When you write the first 2 body paragraphs, you can write what's called a topic sentence. A topic sentence, like a thesis statement, is always 2 things. It's always main idea plus the supporting point for that body paragraph. The main idea, again, is the main idea of the whole essay, which is your position. For that reason, a lot of people don't like to write topic sentences because it can get so repetitive. You need a pretty good vocab to say the same thing multiple times using different words. So if you don't want to write a topic sentence, at the very least, get the supporting point for that body paragraph in the first sentence. After you give the supporting point, you can give the specific example for that supporting point. Use as many sentences as you want to tell your story. And because I don't like to cut the paragraph abruptly after the example, try to write a concluding sentence, wrap it up, summarize in general terms the point that you were trying to make with that example. So you do that twice, And because the third body paragraph has counterargument and refutation, it will look different. When you give the counterargument, attribute it to someone. So write something like, some people think, and give the counterargument. In between the counterargument and the refutation, you need a transition for contrast and what's called the concession. The concession is something nice, polite, and civil, you say, to give a little bit to the other side before you disagree. You make concessions all the time in your personal life. If you have a disagreement with a family member or a friend, to protect the other person's feelings, you say things like, well, I understand where you're coming from, or I understand why you feel that way. Those are concessions. So you can write things like, while that may be true, or though that is understandable, those are concessions, and then give the refutation. So after counterargument, concession, and refutation, the rest of the third body paragraph looks like the rest of the first and second body paragraphs. Give the example and then give a concluding sentence. The first thing you do in a conclusion is restate the thesis statement using different words. A lot of people do that in 2 sentences, so you can do it in 2 sentences if you want to. After you restate the thesis statement, you give what's called departure. A departure is something about the future. It can be an opinion, a prediction, a suggestion, or some combination of those. Think of it like a plane taking off. It gives your reader something to continue thinking about after he finishes reading your essay. And then, because every paragraph should have at least 3 sentences, if you need another sentence, you can give another hook. So that's an introduction to the basic concepts of argumentative essay writing for the Analyze an Issue essay on the analytical writing part of the GRE, or the independent essay on the writing part of the TOEFL. To read more in detail, including examples of all the concepts I just described, as well as a writing exercise, please visit my website. That information is in the description. And for a private lesson with me, please also visit my website. That information too is in the description. I've worked online with people from all over the world, and I'd love to work with you. Take care.